The rain fell against the windows of the Comet Diner with the sound of 1,000 tiny drums, a relentless rhythm on a night that encouraged sensible people to stay indoors. But for Maya, luxury was a concept from another life. She depended on this job, on the meager tips, on simply getting through another day. The clock on the wall showed 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes left. For the third time, Maya wiped down the long Formica counter, her hands betraying a slight tremor. It wasn't from the chill or the late hour, but from the man occupying booth 4. For 3 weeks, he had been a fixture. Always by himself. Always with that same worn-out baseball cap pulled down low, casting his face in shadow. Always ordering a black coffee he would never drink. And always, his gaze was fixed on her. Tonight, the atmosphere felt different, heavier. His stare was more possessive, more intense. When she dropped a spoon earlier, he had smiled, a razor-thin, cold expression that made her stomach clench. The only other person in the diner was a biker nursing a coffee at the counter. He had arrived 20 minutes ago, his motorcycle roaring like a thunderclap before he entered, dripping from the storm. He was tall and broad, maybe in his mid-40s, with a leather jacket that was aged but cared for. A simple silver ring glinted under the fluorescent lights as he raised his mug. He'd been quiet, ordering a burger and coffee, no fries. But Maya had seen something in him. Each time the man in the cap moved, the biker's eyes would flick to his reflection in the dark window, a subtle, practiced assessment of the room. She made up her mind. Her boss, Gus, had gone home an hour before, leaving her to close up. The cook had left at 11. It was just her, the biker, and the man in the booth. With trembling hands, Maya picked up the coffee pot and approached the counter. The biker, whose jacket bore the name Slate stitched discreetly on the inner lining, sat motionless, his calloused hands cradling the warm ceramic. Leaning in as if to refill his cup, which was still half full, she spoke. "That man's been following me," she whispered, her voice a faint thread of sound against the drumming rain. 4 weeks. I don't know what to do." Slate didn't move a muscle, his gaze fixed forward. Yet, his entire posture shifted, a subtle straightening of his spine, a hardening of his jaw. His eyes, which had seemed weary moments before, now held the sharp glint of a newly honed blade. He took a deliberate sip of coffee. "How long?" His voice was a low gravelly rumble. 3 weeks, maybe a little more. He's everywhere I go. The supermarket, the laundromat. And here. Always just watching. Has he touched you? No. But yesterday, her voice faltered, yesterday, he was parked outside my trailer when I got home. Just sitting in his car. When I saw him, he just waved. Slate's knuckles whitened around his mug. "What's your name?" "Maya." "Maya, I need you to go into the kitchen. You stay there until I tell you it's safe. Don't come out, no matter what you hear. Do you understand?" She nodded, her heart hammering against her ribs. "And Maya?" He finally turned, his gaze meeting hers. His eyes were a storm cloud gray, weathered by things she couldn't begin to guess. "You did the right thing telling me." She fled behind the swinging doors, her pulse frantic. Through the small service window, she watched. Slate finished his coffee with a slow, methodical pace. He took out an old leather wallet, placed a $20 bill on the counter for his $12 meal, and rose to his feet. He zipped up his jacket with a deliberate calm, like a man preparing for a task he performed 1,000 times before. The bell over the door chimed as he stepped out into the pouring rain. Maya's attention shot to booth 4. The stalker was leaning forward now, alert, having watched Slate depart. He seemed to hesitate for a second, then tossed a $5 bill on the table and hurried for the door. Through the rain-streaked glass, Maya saw the scene unfold in a silent, tense drama. Slate stood beside his motorcycle, his back to the diner. The stalker came out, pulling his hood up as he walked briskly toward a nondescript gray sedan at the far end of the lot. Then, Slate turned. There was no grand gesture, no shouted challenge. He simply moved into the man's path, an immovable object. Rain streamed down his face, but he didn't speak. The stalker stopped short. Even from inside, Maya could see his posture shift from confidence to fear. He tried to sidestep Slate, but the biker moved with him, blocking him again. Words were exchanged, though she couldn't hear them. The stalker's mouth moved quickly, his hands gesturing wildly. Slate remained still, arms crossed over his chest. The message was unmistakable: I see you. I know what you're doing, and you don't scare me. The stalker's shoulders sagged in defeat. He backed away toward his car, fumbling for his keys. Slate watched him the entire time, a statue in the storm, not moving until the sedan's taillights vanished into the night. Then, he swung a leg over his bike. The engine exploded to life, and he rode off in the same direction. Maya pressed a hand to the window, her breath fogging the cold glass. She felt a tiny spark of something she hadn't felt in weeks: hope. But a cold voice in her gut whispered a truth she didn't want to hear. Men like that don't just give up. She locked the diner at midnight, her hands still shaking. The lot was deserted now, save for her old sedan and puddles mirroring the diner's neon sign. The drive home was a blur of paranoia, her eyes glued to the rearview mirror. No gray sedan. Just darkness and rain. Her single-wide trailer was at the end of Willow Creek Estates, its porch light broken. She parked and made a dash for the door. As her key slid into the lock, an instinct made her glance back. Across the street, almost invisible in the shadows between streetlights, was a motorcycle. The engine was off. A dark silhouette sat on it, a silent sentinel in the rain, watching. Protecting. Maya's hand flew to her chest. She gave a small, hesitant wave of thanks. The figure offered a single, sharp nod in return. She hurried inside, secured every lock, and for the first time in a month, slept without nightmares. She didn't know that across the street, Slate remained on his bike until the sun rose, his eyes never leaving her door. And she didn't know that 15 miles away, the stalker sat in his car before a rundown farmhouse, staring at a wall covered in her pictures, his hands balled into fists. This wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Slate's phone vibrated at 6:47 a.m., he'd been awake all night, now parked at a 24-hour truck stop 3 blocks from Maya's trailer, nursing his 4th coffee. Sleepless nights were an old acquaintance, a habit ingrained by years in the service. His mind, however, refused to rest. Not until he knew she was safe. A text from an old comrade appeared: "You good, brother?" He ignored it. At 7:15, Maya's sedan pulled out of Willow Creek Estates. Slate gave her a 30-second lead before following at a safe distance. He watched her arrive at the Comet Diner for her morning shift, saw the lights come on, saw her tie her apron through the window. It all looked normal, safe. But Slate knew better than to trust appearances. He had seen the look in that stalker's eyes, an obsession that wouldn't be broken by a single warning. It was the same look he'd seen in the eyes of enemies who would rather die than surrender. Unpredictable. Unhinged. Slate needed to find him. He spent the morning making quiet inquiries. The gas station attendant remembered the gray sedan. Paid in cash, never said much. No name, no paper trail. But obsessive people make mistakes. They get careless. At 2:30 p.m., Slate saw the sedan parked behind a laundromat 6 blocks from the diner. It was empty. He waited, his engine idling softly. 20 minutes later, the stalker emerged holding a black trash bag. But it was what Slate saw through the laundromat window that turned his blood to ice. The bag didn't contain clothes. It held photographs. Dozens of them, fluttering as the man walked. Pictures of Maya. Slate's jaw tightened. This was far worse than he'd imagined. He followed the sedan out of town, keeping several cars between them. The stalker drove with the careful precision of someone trying not to be seen, but his head kept snapping to his rearview mirror. Paranoid. Good. Fear could be a useful tool. They drove for 40 minutes into the countryside, where houses grew sparse and roads turned to gravel. The sedan finally turned down a long, overgrown driveway leading to an old farmhouse with peeling paint and crooked shutters. Slate parked his bike a quarter-mile away and approached on foot through the woods, his movements silent and practiced. Through a grimy window, he saw the stalker. He was tacking something to a wall. Slate's stomach twisted. It was a shrine. An entire wall was plastered with photos of Maya, walking to her car, serving coffee, sitting on her trailer steps. There were maps with her routes marked in red ink, her work schedule scrawled on a small chalkboard, and in the corner, an open duffel bag. Inside lay rope, duct tape, and a knife. Slate's hands clenched into fists. This wasn't stalking anymore. This was planning. The man was escalating towards something monstrous. He'd seen enough. He kicked the door. It splintered from its frame and crashed to the floor. The stalker whirled around, his eyes wide with shock. "Who the hell are you?" Slate didn't answer. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and slammed the man against the wall, his forearm pressing hard against his throat. Photos rained down around them. "I warned you," Slate said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I told you to stay away." The man's face flushed red, then purple, as he clawed uselessly at Slate's arm. "She's mine. I love." "That's not love," Slate's voice was like ice. "That's a sickness." He eased the pressure just enough for the man to gasp for air. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack your bags, you're going to leave this town tonight, and you are never coming back." The stalker's eyes flickered with defiance. "You can't make me." Slate slammed him back against the wall, harder this time. A framed photo shattered. "I just did. And if I ever see you near her again, if I even hear you're within 50 miles of this town, what I do to you will make you wish I just called the cops." He released him. The stalker collapsed, coughing and sputtering. Slate walked to the wall and began ripping down the photos, crushing them in his fists. "You have 12 hours, he walked out, leaving the door hanging from a single hinge. As Slate rode back toward town, his phone buzzed again. It was the same friend. *Slate. Whatever you're into, don't do it alone. We're here. He stared at the message. He had wanted to handle this quietly, to keep his crew out of it. They had all moved on, built new lives. But looking at those photos, at that duffel bag, he knew this was bigger than a scare tactic. This required a kind of justice the law was too slow to deliver. He typed back, "Need you. All of you. I'll explain when you get here. The reply was instantaneous. "Already on our way, brother." Slate pulled over and looked back toward the farmhouse, now a speck in the distance. He had given the stalker 12 hours. But deep down, he knew the truth. Men like that don't run. They escalate. The steel sentinels arrived at dawn, a rolling thunder that the town never saw coming. 5 motorcycles, 5 men, each carrying the weight of the road, of past mistakes, and of a loyalty forged in fire. They pulled into the gravel lot of Forge and Frame Garage, a place owned by Slate's oldest friend, a man who knew when to keep his mouth shut. Slate was waiting, leaning against his bike. He looked exhausted but sharp. When he saw them, a fraction of the tension left his shoulders. The lead rider, a mountain of a man with a gray beard, swung his leg over his bike. Grizz, 6'5" and 300 pounds, had been with Slate in the sandbox. They'd bled on the same foreign soil. "You look like hell, Slate," Grizz rumbled, pulling him into a bone-crushing hug. "Feels worse." The others dismounted. Anvil, bald and tattooed, built like his name. Gizmo, lean and wiry, a genius with any machine. Shepherd, silver-haired and quiet, who earned his name by listening more than he spoke. And Hawk, the youngest, with eyes that missed nothing. They gathered in a circle, steam rising from their coffee cups. "So," Grizz said, "are you going to tell us why we dropped everything and rode for 12 hours? Slate told them. Maya's desperate whisper, the stalker's obsession, the farmhouse shrine, the duffel bag. "I gave him 12 hours to leave town," Slate finished. "That was 18 hours ago." "And?" Hawk asked. "His car is still parked behind the multiplex. He's still here." A dangerous quiet fell over the group. Anvil cracked his knuckles. "So, we're going to have a talk with this guy." "More than a talk," Slate said. "I need to know she's safe. Permanently. The cops won't do anything until he acts, and by then. It's too late," Shepard finished softly. "We've all seen this story before." Grizz studied Slate's face. He knew his friend better than anyone. "This girl," he said slowly. "She's important to you." Slate met his gaze. "She asked for help. That's all that matters." "That's not what I asked." A beat of silence. "I don't know her. Just met her. But when she looked at me," Slate shook his head. "She was drowning, Grizz. And no one else was throwing her a line." Grizz nodded slowly. That was Slate. He'd always been the one who couldn't just walk by. "All right," he said. "What's the plan?" "Protection. Surveillance. I need eyes on her at all times. And when he makes his move, because he will, I need us to be ready." "Ready for what?" Gizmo asked, though he already knew the answer. "To end this. Not kill him," Slate added quickly, seeing Anvil's expression. "But make sure he never comes back. Make him understand that to touch her, he has to go through all of us." Hawk pulled out a notebook. "Her schedule." Slate laid it all out. The Comet Diner, the trailer at Willow Creek, her predictable routine, a pattern a predator could easily exploit. "We'll rotate," Grizz decided. 2 men on her at all times. Blend in. Slate, you're too visible. He knows you. You coordinate from here." "No," Slate said flatly. "You're the only one he recognizes," Grizz countered. "If he sees you, he'll panic, do something rash. We need him calm, thinking he's in control, until we're ready." Slate wanted to argue, but he knew Grizz was right. Strategy over emotion. "Fine," he conceded. "But the second something happens. You'll be the first call," Grizz promised, clapping him on the shoulder. "We protect our own. And you just made this girl one of ours." Shepard spoke up. "There's something else. Men like this, they don't operate on logic. They operate on fantasy. When that fantasy is threatened, they get violent. So we don't just threaten it," Grizz said. "We shatter it. Make him realize she was never his to begin with." Anvil grinned, a chilling sight. "I'm good at shattering things." They spent the next hour planning. As the sun climbed, the steel sentinels mounted their bikes and dissolved into the town, invisible and watchful. Slate stood alone in the garage, staring at his phone. He wanted to call Maya, to warn her, but what could he say? Instead, he sent a text to Grizz, "Keep her safe." The reply was immediate, "On our lives, brother." Maya noticed them on her second shift. 2 men she'd never seen, sitting in separate booths. One was immense with a gray beard, ordering pancakes every hour. The other was bald and covered in tattoos, pretending to read a week-old newspaper. They weren't subtle, but they weren't menacing either. When she brought the bearded man his 4th coffee, he smiled. "You make a good cup, miss." "Thanks," she said, her voice cautious. "Nice town." Quiet, there was a knowing look in his eyes that reminded her of Slate. That same watchful stillness. She didn't know why, but she felt safer. By 2 o'clock, she'd almost convinced herself it was over. 3 days without seeing the gray sedan. 3 days without feeling that crawl on her skin. She was taking out the trash when she learned how wrong she was. The alley behind the diner smelled of grease and old coffee grounds. She propped the back door open and hauled the bag toward the dumpster. She heard the footsteps too late. Maya. Her blood ran cold. She spun around. The stalker stood 5 feet away, blocking her path. He looked gaunt, his eyes bloodshot and wild. "You told someone," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "You brought those men to my house. They broke my door. I don't know what you're." "Don't lie to me," he screamed. He took a step closer. "Those pictures were special. You and that biker, you ruined everything. Stay away from me." "I loved you," he continued, as if she hadn't spoken. "I watched over you. And this is how you repay me." He lunged, his fingers digging into her arm like claws. "You're coming with me. We're leaving." He never finished. A shadow detached itself from behind the dumpster. Anvil emerged like a force of nature, grabbed the stalker by the collar, and slammed him face first into the brick wall. The man crumpled, dazed. Anvil yanked him up, pinning him with one massive forearm. "Bad idea, friend. Real bad." The back door flew open. Grizz rushed out, followed by Gus, the diner owner. "What the hell is going on?" Gus yelled. "This guy just assaulted your waitress," Grizz said calmly, already dialing his phone. "You should call the police." But the stalker's eyes found Maya. "This isn't over," he wheezed. "You can't hide from me. You belong to." Anvil increased the pressure. "Shut up." Within minutes, 2 police cruisers arrived. They took statements, photographed Maya's bruised arm, and arrested the stalker. Maya told them everything. One of the officers, a weary woman named Miller, shook her head. "We'll hold him overnight, but unless you get a restraining order, he'll be out by tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Maya's voice cracked. "He attacked me. First offense, no weapon, no major injury. The judge will probably give him probation," Miller said, looking genuinely apologetic. "That's the system." After they left, Grizz and Anvil walked Maya inside. Gus, unusually gentle, told her to take the rest of the day off, paid. Grizz sat at the counter. "You got somewhere safe to stay tonight?" "Just my trailer." "That's not safe," he pulled out his phone. "Slate's going to want to know about this." "Who are you people?" Maya asked quietly. "Friends of a friend," Grizz said. "And right now, we're your friends, too." 10 minutes later, Slate's motorcycle roared into the lot. He stormed through the door, his eyes finding Maya instantly. "Are you hurt?" She showed him the bruises. His jaw clenched so tight she heard his teeth grind. "Where is he?" "County lockup," Anvil said. "But he'll be out tomorrow." Just then, Slate's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, and his expression grew even darker. "Say that again." "All of it." "Christ." "Okay. Stay there." He hung up and looked at Maya, his voice carefully controlled. "How long have you lived in that trailer?" 2 years. "Why?" "He's been watching you for longer than 3 weeks. They found a storage locker. 6 months of surveillance photos, maps of your old apartment. He's been tracking you for at least a year." The room tilted. Maya grabbed the counter. "A year?" "He had something else," Slate continued, his voice gentle despite the fury in his eyes. "A plane ticket. One way. Dated for tomorrow night. 2 seats." The implication hung in the air like poison. He had been planning to take her. "We need to move," Grizz said. "He's going to make bail tomorrow. And when he does, he'll panic," Slate finished. Cornered animals are the most dangerous, he looked at Maya. You're not staying alone tonight. Or any night until this is over. Understand? She nodded, too shaken to argue. Outside, thunder rumbled. And somewhere in a downtown jail cell, a man's obsession was twisting into something far more deadly, rage. Slate stood in the storage unit at 3 a.m., every cell in his body screaming for violence. The space was a monument to madness, every wall covered with a timeline of Maya's life, assembled by a man who had made her his entire world. Hawk stood beside him, flashlight in hand. He started tracking her 2 towns over, Hawk said grimly. Followed her here. But this is what you need to see, he pointed to a section of the wall. It wasn't just Maya. There were 3 other women, each with their own section, ending with a newspaper clipping, * local woman drops charges, leaves town. Missing person case closed *. He's done this before, Hawk said quietly. The police know about this? Slate's hands had curled into fists. Called it in an hour ago. Detective named Miller is on her way. But here's the problem. Most of this is circumstantial. Photos aren't illegal. The assault charge might stick, but he'll still be out by noon. System's broken, Slate said bitterly. System's slow, Hawk corrected. Question is, do we have that kind of time? They documented everything before Detective Miller arrived. She was a weathered woman who looked like she'd seen too much. Jesus Christ, she muttered, walking through the unit. Will this be enough to keep him locked up? Slate pressed. Miller hesitated. Honestly? Maybe. If the judge sees this, considers him a flight risk. But I can't promise anything. His bail hearing is at 10 a.m. 7 hours. Back at the garage, the Steel Sentinels held a council of war. So we just wait. Anvil paced like a caged tiger. We don't wait, Grizz said. We plan for the worst. Shepard, who had been studying a map, finally spoke. If he makes bail, he's got 2 options, run, or finish what he started. He's not running, Slate said with certainty. This is about control now. We took that from him. He'll want it back. Then he comes for Maya, Gizmo concluded. Tonight. So we let him come, Grizz said, and the room went silent. A trap, Anvil said slowly. Use her as bait? No, Slate's voice was sharp. We don't risk her. But we make him think she's vulnerable. Draw him out on our terms. Hawk was already sketching on a notepad. The Comet Diner. He knows the layout. We make sure word gets around that Maya is working the closing shift, alone. He'll come through the back, Shepard added. It's his pattern. So we'll be waiting, Anvil said, cracking his knuckles. Maya needs to be somewhere safe, Slate insisted. My sister has a cabin 3 hours north, Grizz offered. No cell service. Off-grid. I'll have her pick Maya up this afternoon. Will she go? Gizmo asked. She'll go, Slate said, remembering the terror in her eyes. What about the cops? Shepard asked. We keep Miller in the loop, off the record, Slate decided. But we handle this our way. When it's done, we hand him over, gift-wrapped. Grizz stood. All right. Hawk, you're on logistics. Anvil and Gizmo, equipment. Shepard, you coordinate with Miller. Slate, you talk to Maya. What about you? Slate asked. Grizz smiled, a grim expression. I'm going to that bail hearing. I want to see the face of the man we're about to break. At 9:30 a.m., Slate found Maya in her trailer, shoving clothes into a bag with trembling hands. Grizz told you, he stated. She nodded. His sister is driving me to a cabin. He said I'll be safe. You will be. And you? Her eyes searched his. "What are you going to do?" "We're going to make sure he never bothers you again." Before she could ask how, his phone buzzed. A text from Grizz, * he made bail. $5,000. He's out star. Slate's expression hardened. Time to go. Now. As they walked to his bike, Maya grabbed his arm. "Slate, thank you. Thank me when it's over." He watched her drive away with Grizz's sister, then turned to his crew. "He's free," he announced. "We move tonight." The steel sentinels nodded as one. The trap was set. The Comet Diner sign flickered in the darkness. 9:47 p.m. Inside, a lone figure in a waitress uniform moved behind the counter, her blonde hair in a ponytail. From a distance, she looked like Maya. But it was Shepard, 6 feet tall but hunched over, wearing a wig and one of Maya's spare uniforms. The bait just had to be believable enough. Anvil was crouched behind the dumpster in the alley. Hawk was on the roof with binoculars. Gizmo sat in a van across the street, monitoring hidden cameras. Grizz was in the kitchen, and Slate waited by the back door, a phantom in the shadows. They had been in position for 2 hours, a testament to military patience. Slate's earpiece crackled. "Gray sedan just turned onto Main," Hawk whispered. "Headlights off." "Confirmed visual," Gizmo added. "Parking 3 blocks east." Slate's pulse slowed, his focus narrowing to the mission. "Hold positions. Let him come to us." Hawk's steady voice narrated the stalker's approach. "He's out of the vehicle, moving to the alley. I've got eyes on him." This was it. Through a crack in the door, Slate saw him. The stalker moved slowly, his hand in his jacket pocket. He tried the back door. It opened. They'd left it unlocked. He slipped inside. Slate counted to 5, then followed, silent as a ghost. The stalker crept through the dark hallway. "Maya," he called softly. "I know you're here." Shepard, his back turned, moved into view behind the counter. "We need to talk." The stalker's voice grew harder. He pulled his hand from his pocket, revealing the glint of a 6-inch blade. "I didn't want this, but you forced my hand. You and that biker." He moved closer. "You ruined everything. So now." Shepard turned around. The stalker froze, his eyes widening in horror as he realized his mistake. "Wrong girl," Shepard said calmly. The lights blazed on. Grizz stepped from the kitchen. Anvil blocked the back door. Hawk dropped from a ceiling panel. Gizmo entered from the front, and Slate stepped into the center of it all. They formed a circle around him, 6 men, no weapons needed. The stalker spun in a panic, knife trembling. "Stay back. You'll do nothing," Slate said, his quiet voice more terrifying than any shout. "Drop the knife." "No." "Where is she?" "Safe," Slate said. "Somewhere you'll never find her." The stalker's face twisted in rage. "She's mine. I spent a year." "That wasn't love," Grizz cut in. "That was sickness." The stalker lunged for the front door. Anvil caught him, yanking him back. The knife clattered to the floor. They wrestled him into a chair, where he fought like a cornered animal until Shepard clamped a hand over his mouth. "Enough," Slate commanded. He crouched to eye level. "We're going to have a conversation. Your life depends on what you decide in the next 5 minutes," he gestured to the phone on the wall. "Go ahead. Call the cops. Tell them you broke into a closed diner with a knife to attack a woman you've been stalking for a year." The stalker's mouth worked soundlessly. "Or," Slate continued, "you listen to our offer." "What offer?" he whimpered. Grizz played a video on his phone, the storage unit in all its sick detail. "We gave this to the police," Grizz said, "along with information about your other victims." The stalker's face went white. "But that takes time," Slate said. So we're offering you a choice. The easy way, or the hard way. Gizmo unzipped a backpack, revealing a bus ticket, $500 cash, and a note. The easy way, Slade explained. You take this ticket to Seattle. It leaves in 2 hours. You get on that bus, you never come back, you never contact Maya again, and you get help. And if I don't? The stalker whispered. Slade leaned closer. Then we drive you to the state line and we make sure you understand, physically and permanently, what happens to men who hurt women. Then we still give the evidence to the cops. You'll be running from us and the law for the rest of your miserable life. The room was silent. I loved her, he whispered. No, Slade said firmly. You didn't. Grizz set the backpack on the floor. Clocks ticking. The stalker looked at their faces, saw no mercy, only cold certainty. His shoulders slumped. The bus, he whispered. I'll take the bus. They drove him to the station in silence and watched him board. As the bus pulled away, Slade called Detective Miller. It's done, he said. He's gone. The immediate threat is over. Miller was quiet for a moment. I should arrest all of you. But you won't. Another pause. No. I won't. Just don't make me regret this, Slade. You won't. Morning light filtered through the diner windows. Maya stood in the parking lot, watching Grizz's sister drive away. She'd spent 3 days in a cabin, unwinding a year's worth of fear. Grizz had called her yesterday, *it's over. You can come home, star. The diner looked the same, but everything felt different. She pushed through the door. Gus, her boss, broke into a rare smile. There she is. Was starting to think you'd quit on me. Not a chance, she said, tying on her apron. About that, Gus said, pulling an envelope from under the register. Some guys came by, left this for you. Inside was $800 and a note in blocky handwriting, * for the shifts you missed. You earned it. G*. Her throat tightened. She worked her shift in a daze. The day was beautifully, boringly normal. But every time the door chimed, her heart leaped. At 2 p.m., she stepped outside for air and saw it, the stalker's gray sedan, abandoned at the edge of the lot. Her breath caught, but then a police cruiser pulled up. Detective Miller got out. It's all right, Ms. Collins. We're just collecting evidence. That's his car. Was his car, Miller corrected. Want to guess where we found the keys? In a bus station locker in Seattle, along with a written confession. He turned himself in this morning. He's going away for a while. Maya's knees went weak. How long? 18 months, probably. Maybe more. You won't see him again, Miller tipped her hat. You've got good people looking out for you. Don't forget that. At 6 p.m., she heard it, the deep rumble of a motorcycle. Slade sat on his bike in the lot, the sunset painting the sky behind him. Their eyes met through the glass. He nodded once, a gesture that said everything. You're safe now. Maya pressed her palm against the window. He saw it, and for a second, his hard expression softened. Then he kick-started the engine and rode away. That night, she drove home to her trailer. The porch light was fixed. Inside, the broken lock on her window had been replaced. On her kitchen table sat a small card with a phone number and one word, family. Maya sat down and cried, not from fear, but from the overwhelming relief of knowing she hadn't been alone. The nightmares would fade. Because every time she woke up afraid, she would remember the sound of motorcycles, and the feeling of being protected. The next morning, she stepped outside into a quiet, normal day. Tucked under her car's windshield wiper was a folded napkin from the diner. Inside, in that same blocky handwriting, were 5 words, * your family now. Ride safe *. She clutched the napkin to her chest, looking down the empty street. She was okay. She got in her car and drove to work, and for the first time in a year, she didn't check her rearview mirror. She was free. A week later, life had found a peaceful rhythm. Thursday afternoon, she heard it, multiple motorcycles. The steel sentinels were rolling down the highway, a formation of 5 riders in worn leather. They weren't stopping, just passing through. As they drew parallel to the diner, the lead rider, Grizz, raised a hand in a silent salute. The others followed suit. At the rear of the formation was Slate. His head turned, and even through the distance, Maya felt his gaze. She pressed her hand to the window. He lifted his hand from the handlebar for a second, a small wave. And then they were gone. When her shift ended, she found another folded napkin on her windshield. The handwriting was different, rougher. Slate's. Maya. Asterisk by the time you read this, will be gone. That's how it works for us. We don't stay. But I need you to know something. What we did wasn't charity. You didn't need saving. You just needed backup. There's a difference. You're stronger than you know. You survived a year of hell and kept going. That takes more courage than anything we did, star. Asterisk, you've got family now. The kind that shows up. You call that number, any of us will come. That's what family means to us, star. Asterisk, ride safe, Maya. You deserve every good thing coming your way, star. S. Below his initial was a small, crude drawing of a motorcycle with wings. Tears streamed down her face, not of sadness, but of gratitude. That night, she sat on her trailer steps, watching the sunset. She thought about Slate and his crew, hoping they'd find whatever they were looking for on that endless road. A week ago, she'd been drowning. Now, she was breathing. It was because a tired biker had been sitting at her counter at exactly the right moment, and she had been brave enough to whisper the truth. For the first time in over a year, she fell asleep peacefully. In her dreams, she heard the sound of motorcycles, not as a threat, but as a promise, guardian angels of leather and steel, watching over the people the world forgot. Her family. The Steel Sentinels.